brighter than light. He'll give you strife. He's Todd. He's tall, he's mean. He's labeling machine. He's Todd. Rides a motorbike. He'll tell you what it's like. He's Todd. Don't know what he'll say. He'll scare the kids away. He's Todd. He's Todd.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, and thanks for joining us for, I think it's episode 36. So I want to thank the hundreds of thousands so far who tuned in to the show. We really do appreciate it. It's hotter than hell here, and I'm in Southern California, and in 98, I think, and actually humid yesterday, which is kind of odd. So hotter than hell, a great album, by the way. Pick it up if you haven't heard it. So today we're going to talk about the cabling industry. Oh, first, let me go back. So we were on this Big Brother get-together. It's called our all hands meeting that we do once a month. That was yesterday, I believe. And they announced summer hours. My president did, but he didn't really specify what the summer's hours are. So my summer hours going forward, for anyone who wants to get a hold of me, is basically Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And so I just want to, that's it. Anytime after that, null and void. But anyway, going back to the subject at hand, the cabling low voltage industry at hand. Now, we've done 35 episodes on labeling, and man, I'm running out of stuff to talk about. So I've been in this industry for 30 years now, 25 years, I don't know. Now, prior to this, I actually laid asphalt and concrete. So I come from the contracting world. I've been a manufacturer rep before. I've worked for one of the largest distributors in the world, running their Datacom division in northern Colorado. So I've kind of done it all. And, I've seen a lot of stuff throughout the years. I've done a lot of stuff throughout the years, not including, other extracurricular stuff. But within the industry itself, I've had the opportunity through all the different areas in this business to see it change. And we're going to talk about that today. Now, obviously, the show's about labeling, and labeling is a crucial part of what we're going to talk about. There's many, 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 many more components. But to give you an idea, and this is near and dear to my heart, about labeling and identification. It was okay back in the day to use a Sharpie. It was okay back in the day to use the little tab books that you always run out of A's and ones and zeros. Believe it or not, they still sell that junk. In fact, I got one sitting right here. So those things were acceptable, and not so much anymore. You got liability issues, and you got old farts still in the business that can't see, and there's many, many reasons. And labeling within EIA, TIA has also evolved throughout the years. We're up to 606C now, and I did have a previous BS with Todd where I covered some of the components of EIA, TIA 606C as far as the labeling is concerned. So if you need any information on that, please reach out. I'm a cesspool of knowledge when it comes to that stuff, so take advantage of that. But today we're going to talk about the industry as a whole, and you've got a couple of different perspectives, and I've got a couple of guests today that I'm bringing on. We're going to have a really old-timey perspective, my older brother, Sam, and then I brought in Blake Urmos, and Blake is the founder of Low Voltage Nation. I hope you've been able to see some of his episodes. I'm going to let them, obviously, I've introduced them, and you'll recognize Sam right away. Whew. But I'm going to let them talk a little bit about what they've done, what they're doing, where they're going, and get kind of an old school perspective, which is my perspective, maybe Sam's. And then we're going to let Blake talk a little bit about being kind of a new buck, if you will, be careful how you say that. We're going to let him talk about Low Voltage Nation and some of the stuff that he's doing for the low voltage community. So without further ado, Kate, if you would turn the cameras on. There's Blake. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, I told you.
Hey, good morning.
Get my agent on. I don't want to do this anymore.
We're live, Stan.
Hey. Oh, sorry.
So anyway, we got Blake and we got Sam. I'm actually, due to respect for old people, I'm going to let Sam introduce himself, talk a little bit about what he does, what he's doing, and what I saw yesterday. It was hideous. So anyway, Sam, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and what you've been through within the industry.
Well, thanks, Todd. I am Todd's younger brother for all the disinformation that's been spread constantly. 4 years younger, by the way, and obviously the smarter and better looking one. But I have been in the technology arena since, I started programming when I was 15 years old. So Todd and I started a company,
96.
Was it 6 when we?
96, yeah.
So, we've been doing this for a long time. And so I've been involved in structured cabling, data networking, voice over IP, telephone systems. So I've kind of run the gamut through the industry. I've seen it all. I started off with Wellfleet routers. I started off with Apple Talk and baseband cabling, where you would take regular house cabling and connect them together, terminate the ends of the network with a 50 ohm resistor. So I kind of seen it all. And of course now, I'm working with stuff like software defined networks and now with artificial intelligence getting involved with networks. It's mind boggling how the industry as a whole from a technology standpoint has rapidly changed over the years. And, the good thing is that as it relates to structured cabling, because we've had these standards organizations, ANSI and BICSI and TIA, we've been able to stay up with it. Everyone's been able to keep on par with what's going on and how to do it properly. And with today's technology, it doesn't diminish any of those bodies whatsoever. In fact, it only strengthens it. People start talking about, we'll just have everything wireless. Well, guess what, folks? Those wireless access points need to be cabled as well. So you're always going to have some type of a physical infrastructure, regardless. We may end up getting to, wireless SIP trunks from telco coming into your business. It's going to happen, but there's still wiring involved in all of that stuff. So very, very topical in today's technology. Todd's talking about old school. It's still actually performed the exact same way. In fact, yesterday we were on with Blake and Todd and I was in a closet punching cables down and toning cables out and showing them the great labeling job that was done with a Sharpie. Again, proper labeling, proper cabling, regardless if it was 20 years ago or today, still very germane, Tito and Michael.
Well, Sam, a lot of big words this morning.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So going back, I was thinking about some of the stuff that Sam and I did, but I can remember Sam. I think my first week on the job, him putting me. It was downtown Fort Worth, and he handed me this device, and he said, "Okay, you got to terminate this," and it was an Amphenol butterfly connector. And that was my first week on the job. Obviously, that's old school. They really don't do it that way anymore. It's probably cheaper to buy them. But, after about my 15th attempt, and every time you screw up, you got to throw the connector away, I finally said, screw it. And I went around the corner to the Black Dog. a nice Irish bar. I remember that very fondly. But, I myself have been through the era of lacing inside of a data center. Forget zip ties, forget Velcro. There was an old school way of lacing up on this ladder rack. So we've been through the Amphenol, we've been through the Type 1, we've been through the thick net, the thin net. And so this whole industry, I can remember going from Cat 3, which was the cat's meow forever. Cat 4 lasted about 6 months, right? Cat 5 came along, 5E and blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what cat we're at now, 7 or 8. But again, it's all about transmission speeds. The big thing, too, is from a liability standpoint. We talked about that earlier, is that the cables have to be terminated correctly. They have to be labeled correctly. There's a lot of things that go into today's infrastructure that back in the old day, I can even remember it was okay to keep the Cat 3 lying on the ceiling tiles. And then if you were lucky, you had supports that you can zip tie the cable to those supports if you were lucky. And then they came out and they said, no, you got to use J-hooks that are attached to the ceiling grid supports. And so, it's just come a long way. The new 606, a lot of it, there's subtle changes, but acronyms within the industry, whether it be an ITC, an MDF, an MER, a TC, ODD, OCD, OPP, whatever you want to call it. Again, that terminology changes with everything else. And so, with that being said, Blake, I want to introduce you, and you're kind of I wouldn't call you the new kid on the block, but again,
not that young, but yeah, I am.
Yeah, you didn't have to go through all the crap that Sam and I did back in the day with, getting up there and maybe you've done it lacing or using wire wrap even, those wire wrap guns. Remember those? Oh my God.
Well, the thing is that I see all this stuff in the infrastructure, all the old stuff that you guys installed. And that's kind of why I started Low Voltage Nation. But anyway, go ahead.
But anyway, the thing is that I was at a very large data center out in Phoenix, a very, very large data center. And inside the center of this data center, he had some really old school steel racks. And inside there, he had some wire wrap. He had some nut terminal blocks. And I said, what the hell are you doing with that? And he goes, well, don't get near it. It's still live. And I said, why are you keeping that? And he says, it works. So, again, going back to what Grandpa said, if it works, don't change it. And he was an old-timey guy like Sam. So, it brought him some relevance from where we were to where we are today. So one of the things that, Blake, I'd like you to talk about is obviously what you've seen, the changes you've seen within the industry. I know you have some programs going on. I want to talk about some of the programs you have going on, some of the partnerships that you have on board. And so, with that being said, Blake, tell us about Blake.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm a trained network engineer and a sound engineer. That's kind of what I went to school for. And I didn't use it for like 8 years. And I became an IT director in healthcare IT. That's really where my strong suit is doing like software implementations. And then I moved into the hospitals doing nurse call systems. So I was doing a lot of structured cabling, ripping out the old analog stuff and doing all the IP nurse call systems. So I did that for a while, then got off the road and did access control systems, surveillance systems, structured cabling here in Middle Tennessee. And then that's when I really started seeing like all of this infrastructure that wasn't labeled. It was spaghetti cable everywhere. And I'm like, holy smokes, like this is a problem. So that's really like the genesis of Low Voltage Nation, was me looking at people, on Instagram, like doing some good work and then getting them on a podcast, be like, hey, like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make it look so pretty? Like, what are you using to like do the J hooks and the Velcro and like all this really like, it's almost like artwork. So it actually turned out like to be like a really good thing for the internet. People like to look at pictures and scroll and everything. So it was really like a way to scratch my own itch and say, hey, like, how do I become better at my job? I'm going to interview everybody I can on Instagram and LinkedIn. And that's really like where like my career started, and then like where it is now with Low Voltage Nation. So yeah, that's like the brief history of Blake.
Well, Blake, is you've seen some of the trends going back from your IT director to your and the different changes of infrastructure, and obviously it's all about speed, and reliability, right, and no downtime. And we're going to talk about fiber in a minute, but Sam, you remember sitting down behind a rack on a chair and doing figure eights, with our fiber. And, we were actually some of the first in the nation to use the Unicam. And back then they were horrible, but they've come a long way. And that really took the art out of fiber. Fiber used to be an absolute art to perfect this. And now everything's done mechanically, all right, more or less, or automatically. Even fusion splicers, trying to manually align those fibers.
Oh, I remember those days.
Oh my goodness! And so again, it's an art. Now, the one thing is within the industry, and Blake, I'll let you talk about this within a minute here, is that when I first started out, and when Sam and I were hiring technicians, it was a job. It was a job to do. And we usually paid a little bit more to retain their attention. Anyway, I know it makes sense to a few of you out there. But now, and obviously it's turned into a career for me and a career for Sam, right? So there are careers, and look at me. Look at me for a second. And what this career has done to me. I'm only 28 years old. And so anyway, the bottom line is that it can become a career. And what these folks in the industry don't realize is it can be a career. And there's many different career paths within the industry. So Blake, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And I'm basically going to have you talk a little bit about, where you see the industry going and the benefits of getting into the industry, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. One of the big things we talk about is how you don't need a college education, so to speak. You can just get, one of these and a tool belt. Yeah, I have one sort of. I didn't get a degree, but I went for 4 years, but I didn't have to go into debt. I could have just got an apprenticeship or just started getting paid. And then in 4 years, I'm making six figures potentially doing splicing or being an RCDD. There's always opportunities to start with being, a greenhorn and being a cable grunt and just running cable all day long, and then moving up the stack of technology to programming the systems. Maybe you'll become like a project manager or build your own company. There's just so many opportunities. And that's like one of the things we're really focusing on is getting people in quickly with the tools that they need. And then here's the training, whether it's through FOA, which we've partnered with to do a fiber optic scholarship, or you can go for like being a doctor and structured cabling, get your RCDD. So we work very closely with Bixby. We work very closely with FOA, and we want to get people, into LVN. It's kind of like the starter kit, and then you can get all those other certifications and then really make a career out of it without having to go to college for it.
So, the big thing is, and one of the other things I saw last week, and I'm still laughing at this, is that, part of our brothers marketing plan is making me the influencer. Ooh, I don't know about that. I can be an influencer. I'm the OG. I'm the OG.
Yeah, you can.
Well, in fact, a funny story, and this is very true, you can't make this stuff up, is that at times, because me and Sam work different schedules, and then Sam's wife is working at different schedules, I sit home and watch Sam's kids. And, all of his kids, the first words out of their mouth weren't daddy or mommy. They were one of a select cuss words that bad Uncle Todd taught them. Very true story. In fact, one of the kids even called me daddy before he called Sam daddy. Now that's a different story altogether. All right there. But the influencing part that I do, all right, and for the most part, it's good these days. Is all about talking about the industry and, supporting the industry. And obviously I'm very select on what I do within the industry, but some of the best sales calls I go on are sitting down and talking with people about how everything has changed those are the absolute best sales calls. And so I'm still very in love with the business, and I have still a very high passion. I'm very passionate about labeling. There's a story with that too. But Sam, from your perspective, what you're seeing now versus back then, and you're talking about career, and I'm going to give you a few accolades, and Kate, you can stop recording because I don't want any evidence that I ever gave Sam the accolades. But from a career standpoint, Sam wanted to be an NFL player, and he played for several major colleges, and he went a different direction. And, Sam is the current owner of Softtech Maintenance out of Fort Collins, Colorado. And you know what? Sam does very well, but Sam has covered the entire gamut of being an RCDD and an MCSC and a blah, 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 blah. He trust me, he'll put you to sleep with all his accreditations. Sam, from an industry perspective and talking about, somebody that's looking into this industry, obviously you're the epitome of what this industry can do. Any advice out there for anybody that is thinking about not being an influencer, right? But actually doing and working for a living. So I'd like to get your 2 cents on that. All right. So anyway, I guess back to the influencers. It is a hot. Everyone wants to be an influencer these days. But anyway, Sam. So in all seriousness, as far as a career perspective,
let me talk. Thanks, Todd. One of the things I've learned, and I've got a slew of certifications in both structured cabling, data networking, software programming. You're right, I've run the gamut. And the one thing that I will say when it comes to accreditations, I think they're important. And I think having the right accreditations, let me rephrase that, is important. And all that really does, it shows a prospective employer, a prospective customer, whoever, right, that you at least had the wherewithal to understand the knowledge content and to be able to pass some test that showed that you had some proficiency in it, okay? It's like having a college degree. To me, a college degree only shows that you had the wherewithal to stick it out for 4 years. Doesn't mean you learned anything. But in our industry, it actually means you learned something if you have one of these certifications. So yes, I think they're important. Do you have to be a certification hog like I've been? No, that's up to you. But my business over the years has done a lot of stuff for different customers. And so I always wanted to be able to walk in the door and at least present my certifications and let the customer or prospective customer know that, hey, at least I have some type of idea of what I'm talking about. So again, I think it's important for people coming into the industry these days. Going through BICSI training, or there's a ton of other training that's out there, getting a hold of the different programs that Low Voltage Nation offers to its folks. And it again, extremely important, I believe, on how that's done. But with that being said, I've worked with some of the most brilliant people in the industry who have no certifications, who've not gone through any, formal training, if you will. It's all on the job. And especially these old school guys that are like that, oh my God, they're walking encyclopedias with regard to the subject matter that they talk about. So, there you go. I think it's important, especially when it comes to structured cabling. You need to know all aspects of it, not just popping a trunk and slinging cable like, a whole lot of people in the industry do. But, how to label. When you're cinching your cables up, making sure that you're not deforming the jacket. Little things like that, especially when we're getting into these really high-speed networks these days. And when a bend radius on a cable can affect your entire network. Things like that. Again, important stuff.
Well, obviously, and it's obvious to everyone, Sam, that you're your own biggest fan, and we appreciate that. Blake, I know you and I talked earlier about some of the programs that you have available to some of these up and comers, or maybe it's an old fart like me who, is tired of being the door guy at the supermarket. So Blake, can you take just a few minutes before we close out and talk about some of the programs that Low Voltage Nation has?
Yeah, the one we're focusing on primarily right now is with FOA. So GoFro, they're out of they're outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I think it's Fitzgerald, Georgia. But anyway, so he does FOA training, and we partnered with them to offer a scholarship to 6 aspiring fiber optic technicians. So that we're going to give them all the training. It's a 40-hour course. So they go through Fiber U, which is an FOA program. They have to do that. It's a prerequisite. That's online. I think it's like a 10 to 20 hour course. And then we're going to do in person, and they get a certificate. So the CFOT, through FOA. So yeah, it's, that's how we're kicking off this whole training mentorship program that we're doing. We also have some loose connections with Bixby. I've been in communication with them and their mentorship program, so probably do some collaborative efforts with them. But we're really just getting this started. But we know it's important because all I hear all day long is we don't have enough technicians to meet the requirements, enough qualified technicians. Yeah. They'll put them in like a lab or a bucket truck and like they don't know what they're doing. Like you need proper training for doing fiber fusion splicing. Like you can't just pick up, a pair of cutters and start cutting cable. Like it's a very highly skilled specialty.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's a highly skilled specialty, and that's kind of where we sit today. Versus the old days and the way it was back then when there wasn't as much governance. There wasn't a lot of rules associated with that. All right. And so Blake, Low Voltage Nation and brother, look for some big things to come between collaborative efforts between the two. I look forward to that. We'll definitely see Blake on again if you're willing to come back on at some point. Sam, you're done. This was the last trip.
Sorry.
You know what? But
we have some opportunities at LVN for you. Don't worry.
Yeah. With that being said, I sincerely appreciate you getting up and me, because again, summer hours, I'm actually, my day's done. Again, so you got my new summer hours earlier. But with that being said, again, thank you very much. I appreciate your support of Brother Products. I appreciate both of you and your wisdom and knowledge about the industry. I hope it's been very helpful to the thousands out there. And with that being said, I bid you adieu. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Sam. Sam, I'm sure you'll call me after the show and chastise me, so I look forward to that.
I will call you something. How's that?
All right, thanks, Todd. I appreciate you. All right, have a good week. So, with that being said, we got a couple upcoming big shows, actually. We've got Kate, where are they? So, Labeling Nightmares contest. Now, there's details to follow, but we've had Ian from RBC on here explaining some of the issues he's had with bad labeling and the amount of time and money it has cost him because of some past labeling. So, Ian, I'm actually going to give you a little bit of credit. You kind of helped this. And you planted a seed in Kelly's brain, and we're going to do a Labeling Nightmares contest. And I've seen everything, and I can go on and on and on for hours about labeling nightmares myself, but I'm going to let you guys tell me about labeling nightmares. So there will be a contest. There's going to be some great prizes. We've got some BS with Todd shirts available. Don't forget about the BS with Todd shirts, all right? Reach out to one of your manufacturer representatives or myself, and we can get you a BS with Todd. Obviously, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Huh? And then on the front, all right. Yeah. So anyway, look for those episodes coming up. And then on the 29th, we got a big announcement. I can't tell you what it is right now, obviously, or that would spoil the big announcement. But it should be a good one. And as far as contacting, I'm out here in Southern California. Again, there's contact information. I was going to talk about my favorite subject, me again, but let's talk about Blake. There's Blake's information right there. If you want to get a hold of Blake, there's Sam's information. If you want to send them some harassing emails, please do. As far as the team is concerned, I'm out of Southern California, Vista, California. Now, the new studio here is coming along. We got Mr. Jamie Brookover out of Virginia Beach, Mr. Dan Cobb somewhere in Wisconsin, Mr. Bruce Page out of Boston or Massachusetts or something like that. Mr. Rob Dawkins in North Carolina. And Craig Robinson, our glorious leader, is out of Bradenton/Sarasota. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody who's come on board. You can get all of the previous 35 episodes available on brothermobilesolutions.com. We are revamping that whole website to make it a hell of a lot easier to get to the past episodes. But there's 35 great episodes, 36 great episodes now, if you will. And those are all available to rewatch. And there's a lot of good information on there. So brothermobilesolutions.com, select the datacom industry or electrical industry, scroll down a little bit, and boom, it's right there. You can either register for the next episodes, the upcoming episodes, or you can see some of the past episodes. So with that being said, it's 10:31. I'm a minute overtime. My day's done, obviously, summer hours. Dave, I saw you out there, so you didn't state the hours, so I thought I'd just make up my own. Bruce Page, thank you very much. My number one fan out there, Bruce Page, kind of a creepy number one fan, if you will. But anyway, Bruce, I appreciate all your hard work. Kelly, thank you for your work. And Kate in the background. Kate, we're going to have you on one of these episodes one of these times. You know, I talk about you every week or every other week. But anyway, with that being said, have yourself a very blessed week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.